Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Sunday morning chat. We have a very special guest with us today, Monsignor Pace manager Tom Duffin. Coach, welcome in.
Thank you, Ant. Good to be here. How you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good. So let's jump right into things here as they stand. You obviously announced earlier this year this would be your last season at Pace. What was your thought process that led you towards that decision?
Well, Anthony, it's been a tough one. It's one of those things where after 30 years of coaching and, the physical wear and tear, the time away from family, but, more importantly, it was the new position that I've had this is going on the end of my fourth year as the athletic director as well. So the Archdiocese of Miami, the people that govern the Catholic schools here in South Florida, there's a lot of new mandates that are now in place, and a lot more coverage has to be. The task of covering events, I should say, are happening with these athletic directors, and there's sort of the Archdiocese and our administration wants to sort of swing away from having a coach slash athletic director. They want the athletic director to be solely, doing that job and that job alone. So I found myself being pulled away so many times. We always played in your HSBN fall leagues, and I appreciate all those years. But it's like I caught myself being called away from games when I was evaluating games, and then I get a call to go look at girls volleyball because there was an incident, or there was an incident at football. So I couldn't give my heart and soul the way I did for the last 25 years as the head coach. So I figured, not getting any younger, job's getting tougher, and I just figured it's time to step back, at Pace, and at least, maybe turn it down, give it to the younger guys, and focus more on what the Archdiocese and what our administration wanted to do.
Sure. Talk about how the season has played out. We're in the last week of the regular season. You have one final district tournament next week, and then also, hopefully a state run. What's the emotions been like trying to balance, how successful of a season you guys are having this year with the emotions of maybe going through the day-to-day that this is the last time you'll be doing this?
Well, it's a great question, because my thing is the group that I have right now, I could not have asked for a better group of kids to end my career at Pace with. This group, which has my youngest son, is my starting shortstop, Sean Duffin, and all those kids that he came in as freshmen, they all were on the JV together. They all worked their way into the varsity, and so I've watched this group of young men grow together and go through the hardships and learning how to cope with varsity baseball. And as far as the success for this year, as well as I do, I mean, we always usually start slow, especially when we'd always go to your tournament and either go 500 or even go less than that. And then we'd always turn it on and win 20 in a row at the end. But it was weird because, we got out of the box and we were winning games that I didn't think we were supposed to win. I mean, on paper, we don't have that big time guy that Pace was used to having, like a couple first rounders or draftable kids or a ton of D1 kids. We have a bunch of kids that they have bought into the program for 4 years. They've believed and invested their heart and souls into what we've been preaching, and we've got off to a good start. And I was always waiting for that slide, and sure enough, 2 weeks ago we started a slide. We had some unfortunate news with one of our pitchers who went down, Carmani Boozer. So we were really thin on the mound as it was, and so that was a shock to the team. And we dropped a couple games that I thought that we shouldn't have dropped, and we played some tight ones. But this last week, it was good to see them get back on track and to win the last three. And again, we were battling, this virus that's going around. So my son had it. He was out for 5 days with fever, and he played senior night with fever. And our catcher, Robert Kramer, is doing the same thing. He's caught every game this year. So, I mean, I love this group of kids. So how did I juggle it? It was just one of those things where, when it's time to go, it's time. some coaches and all these people that I've talked to, all of my colleagues and former colleagues that coached, my predecessor, Joe Zacchio, who was the AD before me, he says that you'll know when it's time, and don't hang on, because he retired and came back into it. And then he regretted, according to what he was telling me, he really regretted coming back the second time because the passion wasn't there. And, right now I know it's that time, at least at Pace. Everyone's saying, oh, you're retiring. No, man, I wish I could retire. I'm too young. I still got many years I have to work, but I just know my time at Pace coaching baseball, I think it's run its course. And if, as long as I'm there, I think the AD position, but again, I don't want to be like a Tom Brady and then come in and out of it. I don't know what tomorrow brings. If there's a situation where, maybe I'm out a year or two and someone at another school or another situation arises, I might come back. I don't know. So, but at Pace, it's that time. It's that time.
How special is it that you get to kind of you get your son along for the ride, kind of his last go around in high school and your last go around, at least with Pace right now? How special has that been?
Well, it's funny because you talk to, a guy like Todd Fitzgerald, he's coached his sons. The many other coaches, Ray Evans and Rich Bilski and all that, and you're going to have differing views. You'll hear a lot of guys say, oh, that was the best. Even Rich Hoffman, talking with him a while back, it was the greatest thing that I ever had. And Anthony, I'm going to tell you, it hasn't been great, man. For me, it's very, very tough because you know me, and you know that I'm a straight shooter. I don't play politics. You've always known that, I believe, about me. And there's no favoritism. So when my kids were growing up, I told my wife, when they were interested in playing sports, and which is, I never forced them to, they've done it on their own. And, I didn't ever wanted to push them because daddy played or daddy coached. But my thing is that my wife and I had this agreement. I said, look, they need to learn to play for other guys, the other coaches, because, daddy's not going to be around forever. And if they do advance, dad's not going to coach them at the next level in college. So I told my wife that I would not coach them while they were growing up through the parks or the travel leagues. And some of my colleagues have coached them all the way through, but I said, no, but if I was coaching still, as they got older in high school, then I would coach them there. And, and like I was telling you, it has been tough because I've told them from the get-go that I'm going to be tougher on you because all the eyes are on me on how I'm going to handle them. And so they were always held accountable for everything. There was times at practice where maybe they felt like they still were comfortable enough that they were at home and they would answer back, and I'd have to lay into them in front of everybody and bench them when I felt like, or pull them out of games. And then that puts a stress and a strain, when you're driving home after the game. You're
Right.
Your dad now, but you can't turn it off that easy. So I think when I look back, when it's all over, when I look back, I will then look at the moments of the games that we won and we shared together. My oldest son, Tommy, who was able to play with me for the 4 years and won a districts. And unfortunately for his senior day, it was the COVID year. So the whole country was locked out of that. But, his sophomore and junior year, they won districts and they made runs. And then now my younger one has been part of, 2 district championships, and now hopefully shooting for a third one this year. So I think when I look back at the overall and reflect on my time, I will appreciate it a lot more. But right now it's been like, man, get off to the next level. I'm fortunate enough that he's going to be playing at Indian River State College, my youngest Sean, next year. And I'm going to enjoy sitting in the stands and watching him and letting Coach Torrey and the rest of the coaches over there deal with him.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure. So give me some of your a lot's changed from when you started coaching to now. A lot of people, you hear coaches talk, they always talk about the negatives of the new game and the negatives of how things have changed. But can you point to, is there things you look at and you say, this particular area is better than it used to be as far as coaching or baseball goes?
Well, I tell you, and this is a credit to yourself and your organization, the coverage of high school baseball is so much broader and a lot bigger and better for the young men that are playing. There's so many avenues to get, their stats out and get their highlights out. When you and I were growing up and playing, you had the Miami Herald and you had I'm dating myself. You had the Miami Herald and the Miami News. Those were the two papers. And if they didn't put something in there, it was up to the local scout, to follow you along. And then, there wasn't showcases like they have, like Perfect Game and all these things. It was like we played Colt League and after Colt was, oh God, what was it? American Legion ball. And that was it. So those were your travel things, it wasn't like you're traveling to Naples and going to Georgia. So I think the avenues for these young men to be exposed, especially with organizations like yourself and the other ones that are around, are a lot better. But at the same time, it could be a negative because now you have people nitpicking and really micro, looking through a microscope and critiquing every little thing. And so I think a lot of the innocence of the game has been taken away. There's been as far as possible negatives, I think you have the NIL moving in with football, and it's going to be in there with basketball and baseball. And so now you're dealing with the kids that are, and their parents looking at what's happening in college in the portal system, where no one wants to sit around and be developed through the JV and work their way up. So they're all looking around like, okay, well, this year as a freshman, I could play at this school, because maybe they've graduated a lot of guys, but then I'm not good enough to go to the school that I really want to go to, but I'll play here for my freshman year. Then I'm going to transfer over here. And so you're seeing kids bounce around, and it's tough because you're trying to develop kids, and then you get them for 1 or 2 years, and then they pick up and they leave. And now someone is at another school is, enjoying the fruits of your hard labor, and they're getting a kid that's been, brought up and polished a little bit. And now you're saying, what happened to me? And you got to start the process. So, I look at these college coaches like the Bobby Knights of the world and the Coach K's, and Nick Saban and all that. They know it's time to get out because the way they coached, and I think the way that I learned from watching those guys and growing up in that era, it's a lot different. And you need a different type of mentality, and that old school, hard driving coach is not always winning out now because the kids aren't used to that. And I don't know if that's a good thing, Ant. I really don't know if that's a good thing, because I really truly believe that our young kids, and I'm going to include men and women, the young ladies and the young men, the younger athletes, they still need that discipline. They still need and crave. I really believe they crave that, in a world that people are afraid to say what's on their mind, or in a world that they're afraid to hold them accountable. If you just look what's going on in our world around us, it's one of those things where we've lost our way. And that's my opinion. And people can argue the fact. And I'm not trying to get political or anything, but I'm just trying to say that the core of the work ethic that we grew up with, the core of our morals and our integrity and our values are being thrown out because you and we grew up, okay, this is the school you're going to go to. And your dad, I'm sure, told you the same way my dad said, listen, I'm not going to go talk to the coach. If you have an issue and you're not playing, you better figure out how to earn that spot or find another sport. That's how I was. Now it always seems to be the coach's fault if the kid's not playing. There's no accountability, and us as coaches, we want to play the best kids. I mean, it behooves us to play the best kids, because if the best kids are playing and winning, then it makes us look good. Our records go up, and our, we look like we have a successful program. So I just think that the positives are the ability to get information out, to get schools to look at kids are out there, and there's a lot of avenues. But at the same time, I think we've lost our way a little bit on how kids are viewing this commitment to schools and really committing to that one school and staying there. But that's just an old timer's view,
Sure. So I'm talking to a lot of coaches the last couple of weeks about you. Obviously, when you talk to other coaches, you have a tremendous amount of respect around the county, actually around all of South Florida. People, the way you run your program, the way you do things. Have you got a sense of that as you've been traveling around some of these last times to some of your rivals and some of the coaches that you've coached against for a long time? You know, that now that you're getting out, you can kind of have those conversations of respect. Are you getting a lot of that this year?
Oh, I really have, and it's been a very humbling experience because when you go in and you get into that day-to-day grind, most of us, you're just focused on, okay, this is the team I have, and you're dealing with constant issues and do I have to make changes in lineups, and so you're focusing on that grind, and you really don't get a chance to sit back with your colleagues and you get a couple minutes prior to the game when they arrive, you talk, how's it going? And then you're exchanging lineups and then you're doing battle, So now, knowing that this is it, and a lot of my colleagues, they've been able to come up to me and say things to me and the rival spirit is able to be put away for a second, and they've been able to express what it has meant. And a lot of it has been very humbling because a lot of these are some great coaches and great programs, and I never knew that they viewed us that way. I've always tried to run a clean program. I always tried to play with the kids that wanted to play for me. I wasn't that coach that was going to go out to the optimist programs and promise moms and dads, their 11-year-olds that, hey, if you come to Pace, you're going to start. I was never that way. Whoever wanted to come to Pace and play for me, then that's who I was going to coach. And if a kid was going to come in from another school, I always made that phone call to the coaches, giving them the heads up. And it was reciprocated a lot, over the years, and they would do the same. So I was very humbled to hear the respect that these coaches had for me. Because, I tried to always play the best schedule. I never wanted to duck anybody, whether I had a squad that was highly touted or if I was rebuilding. And that I always would play the best, and I was willing to take my lumps because I think that playing the best competition pushes your players, to the highest level, and it also brings out the scouts to watch them. They have opportunities to show that, hey, I am at that level. So I think my colleagues, around the state realized that, hey, this was a guy that would always play us, no matter up or down, would always play hard, whether we won by 10, lost by 10. He knew that they knew, I should say, that when Pace would come up, they would play the game the right way, and that they would play, hard and fair and push them. And so I think that respect was there, just as I respected so many of the great coaches that are around the county. So it's been a wonderful experience, and them, the outpouring, and honoring of me at times, like especially on some of the away games. I was like, they'd do a presentation. So it really was nice. And know that, I guess, that's what I've always felt for myself. The biggest thing that I wanted to do, because players come and go, and I love my relationship with my players and their parents, but the one thing that I never wanted to put in jeopardy or jeopardize was my relationship with my colleagues, the other coaches, because I had to live with them for years. I had to deal with them. And so if I had their respect, that's all I really cared about. That fraternity was very important to me. I really did not want to do things that would jeopardize that, because I really respect what these men do, because I live it. I've lived it for 30 years, and it is a thankless job. It really is. You'll get a handful of kids or parents that'll thank you, but on the most part, it's, they graduate, they move off, and then you're like, okay, you just spent 4 years helping raise your kid, and you didn't even get a little thank you there. But so I really appreciate what the coaches have said and done, and I'm going to miss that camaraderie, as far as the coaching part.
Speaking of your colleagues, so you were a part of, in October, the inaugural HSBN class, Hall of Fame class, brought together probably some of the best that's ever done it down here. Tell me a little bit about what that experience was like, being on the stage with all those guys, man.
Well, first off, Anthony, I don't know how you pulled that off. First off, and if anyone watches or listens to this, what you did for the coaching community here in South Florida, and for North Broward and Dade and Keys and Monroe and Palm Beach. I mean, with the rings and the whole festivity, you went out first class. I mean, people in Canton, would be envious of what you did. So first off, my hat goes off to you. And again, I'll speak on behalf of all the other coaches, but that was such a wonderful evening. But as far as that, again, I keep using the word humble. I mean, you have the guys that likes of Rich Hoffman, who has over 1,000 wins and 11 state championship. My former I played 1 year pro ball with Rich Bilski. I mean, Rich, has 10 or whatever, or 7 or 8 of them, or even 9, I think it is. And Fitzgerald, all these, and Ray Evans, and all these guys Ray Evans, I grew up playing, in the parks with. He's a couple years older than me, but always looked up to Ray and then all the program. So it's that evening, I was starstruck. I'm sitting out there and I hear my stats and they're pretty good, but to hear you put in the same, classification with these guys, it's like, man, that was pretty humbling, but what a true honor it was, because you really put together a great class. I mean, there wasn't a guy on that stage that I could say, I don't know how he got in. No, they all deserved it. And a lot of them, I grew up, I was a player, when you got Fred Burnside. I mean, he recruited me when he was at Dade South, and again, I played against Coach Hoffman when he was a coach at Westminster, and I was a player at Pace, and then I coached against him when he was at Westminster, and then Westminster Academy, and then he was with Fitzy over with Douglas. So, man, it was a wonderful evening. It really was, and it was a great honor.
So if you could, as you're stepping out, if you could give, well, first let's talk about, you guys obviously have a succession plan in place over there. Let's talk a little bit about Chuck Lyman, who's been your assistant for a long time, and how good a hands is the program in, you kind of being able to hand it to someone that's been with you all these years.
Sure. I mean, Chuck I've been at Pace for 30 years. I was 5 years as an assistant, 25 as the head coach. Chuck has been with me 25 of those 30 years at Pace. And all I can say is, I worked for Mike Silvestri for 5 years as an assistant, and it's a tough job, because you have to realize as an assistant coach that you're going to work tremendous amount of hours. You're going to put in, all the little jobs that you're going to have to do that are not glorious, and realize that no matter what happens, you're not going to get any of the glory. And so it is, you talk about thankless job, it really is. And I did it for 5, but think about Chuck did it for 25. And that's not easy, and I always tried to make it to where, and if you were at our games, when Chuck's names was announced, I always knew that I was going to always put him down as the assistant head coach, because I felt, and not every organization does this, but I felt that he earned that right, because he was going to have to do a job that was thankless. And I wanted him to be loyal and understand that I, as the head coach, appreciated what he did. And he handled the pictures. I turned it over to him, and I never questioned him. I mean, there would be maybe a couple of times where I'd go up to him and hint, whisper in his ear, "Are you sure that you want to stay with this guy?" But he ran that pitching, all the time. And if I lived and died with his decision, because I valued his trust, his opinions, and I trusted him wholeheartedly. And it was reciprocated back from him to me for the 25 years of faithful service. So to me, it was a no-brainer when it came time. And so when I went to the administration and told them that, look, this is what the plan was, that I was going to, follow their direction and just go as the AD. And I told us, look, I want to hand it over. Now there's a process in the archdiocese. We had to do the interview, but he passed it through flying colors. He's a Pace graduate, is what we've always wanted. Most of my coaches have coached at Pace, so they know Pace's tradition. And again, Chuck being with me for those years, I hope he's learned some things over the years, but I want Chuck to be Chuck's own man. There's no need for Chuck to be living in any shadows. I already told him, look, when you take it, it is your program. you do things that you feel that you're going to need to do. And, you're younger than me. Maybe you have newer, ideas. Maybe you're going to stimulate it more. And as you get older and you're in there for a long time, you could possibly get stagnant and maybe you lock out in your ideas on things. But Chuck is he has great demeanor for coaching and the head coaching level. I'm curious to see how it's going to be now when he wears the crown.
Different game.
Because, as you know, being the assistant coach, you're everybody's best friend, and they want to confide in you. But how heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? So, I want Chuck to, be his own man. I believe he has always had great relationships with the players. He's a very cool and calm, demeanor, where I'm a little fiery, at times. So I think it's going to be a very good, transition. I don't think it could have gone any better than that. And I'll be there as the athletic director to support him, the program, hopefully for many years to come. So I'm excited to see, and how Chuck is going to do. And I wish him all the best. He deserves it.
Sure. So in all this time that you've had this year, have you thought at all about what is retirement or being away from baseball going to look like? Have you thought about all the extra time you're going to have on your hands?
People say that, and I have to chuckle and laugh, because actually I'm going to lose time, because as the athletic director and all my colleagues that are ADs, they know that the springtime's the heaviest. I mean, and I've been able to, the last 4 years, been able to get out of covering a lot of events because I was coaching baseball.
Right.
Now that that's gone, I'm going to be at track events all day. I'm going to be at boys volleyball. I'm going to be at flag football. So there's no excuse now. So I'm going to be working even more. So it's going to be tougher. And then I'm going to have to cover baseball games, because I was telling you about the new mandates. I have to cover home and away baseball games, whereas my predecessors, they never had to go to these things. So,
right.
But now I'm going to be all over town, frequent flyer miles. So, I chuckle when you say freed up time. The only thing that I will give me time is maybe my weekends, where I don't have to be at practice anymore, or if there isn't any type of practice going on or a game, I might be able to sneak home earlier than 10 o'clock at night on an average. So maybe a little more time to see my beautiful wife, and then maybe be able to get a chance to sneak up and see my youngest one playing, at Indian River, and on a weekend, series or something like that. I think I'm looking forward to that. But as far as the time, brother, I wish you were right by saying I'm going to have more time, but I don't there, unfortunately.
Well, Coach, I'm going to get you out of here on this. It's been a pleasure all the years getting to know you, getting to obviously work with you. You guys have been a tremendous supporter of HSBN, and we can't do what we do if we don't have coaches like you that support us in the fall and support us, in some of our tournaments, and getting us the information and being on top of things. And you've been a class act, and I appreciate everything you've done for us in the baseball community. So enjoy your retirement.
Thank you, Anthony. And again, right back at you. You and your organization have weathered the test of time. I mean, it's a testament to you and your staff, because there's a lot of people that try to come in and do what you do, and they're fly-by-nighters. They're gone in 2 years, and you've held the time. What is it now? 20 years? I don't know.
12 years, 13 years. 13.
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing it for a long time, and again, it's been my honor to deal with you. I mean, you've always been there, from covering the smaller events all the way to the state championships. On the interviews that you've been able to do, and I appreciate what you have done for high school baseball, putting it on the map. And South Florida always has been a hotbed, but you have really elevated it and joined all the different counties and statewide, and you've really done a great job. So I'm going to miss that, but I'm always a phone call away, and and I wish you guys and the rest of all my colleagues that are still in it, I wish them all the best of luck. And it's been a great ride, and it's been an honor and privilege to be part of that community.
Well, hopefully we got a couple more weeks here together. We could see each other in Fort Myers in a couple weeks.
I hope so. We'll give it our best, Anthony.
All right, Coach. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.